put their hope in prevention. People with AIDS were considered already lost, extending their lives a costly, uncertain venture and a poor investment. On this issue, during the meeting, Condoleezza Rice showed a rare flash of emotion. "My mother," she said, "was diagnosed with cancer when I was a teenager. She got treatment and lived until I was 30. You bet those years meant something to me, and they would mean something to every African child whose mother lives to take care of them." The discussion of detail had given way, for me, to a sense of history. During the 20th century, in other government meetings, in other rooms in Berlin, Moscow, and Beijing, political decisions were calmly debated and made that resulted in genocide and the deaths of millions. Now, in a room where I sat, a decision was pending that could save the lives of millions. It was a vivid reminder of the reach and influence of America. The futures of men, women, and children in African slums and remote villages who would never know our names might depend on the words spoken in the Oval Office that day. President Bush went around the room asking for conclusions. Most supported the plan. The keepers of the budget opposed. At last he came to me. "Gerson, what do you think?" "If we can do this and we don't," I said, "it will be a source of shame." As the meeting broke up in a solemn quiet, the president cheerfully mocked, "That's Gerson being Gerson." 6 weeks later, President Bush took his motorcade up Pennsylvania Avenue to deliver the State of the Union, a serious speech ending with a long indictment against the dictator of Iraq. Trusting in the sanity and restraint of Saddam Hussein is not a strategy, and it is not an option. No one expected Africa or AIDS to make an appearance. Among the White House staff, there had been a determined, last-minute attempt to remove the proposal. Americans don't want to hear about giving money to foreigners. They care about kitchen table issues that affect their families. But the president kept it in and spoke these words. "Today, on the continent of Africa, nearly 30 million people have the AIDS virus, including 3 million children under the age of 15. There are whole countries in Africa where more than 1/3 of the adult population carries the infection. More than 4 million require immediate drug treatment. Yet across that continent, only 50,000 AIDS victims, only 50,000 are receiving the medicine they need. Because the AIDS diagnosis is considered a death sentence, many do not seek treatment. Almost all who do are turned away. A doctor in rural South Africa describes his frustration. He says, "We have no medicines. Many hospitals tell people, 'You've got AIDS. We can't help you. Go home and die.' In an age of miraculous medicines, no person should have to hear those words." Ladies and gentlemen, seldom has history offered a greater opportunity to do so much for so many. To meet a severe and urgent crisis abroad, tonight I propose the Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, a work of mercy beyond all current international efforts to help the people of Africa. I ask the Congress to commit $15 billion over the next 5 years, including nearly $10 billion in new money to turn the tide against AIDS in the most afflicted nations of Africa and the Caribbean. In my time at the White House, these were not the most eloquent words I wrote for the President of the United States, but they were the most satisfying. Less than 3 years later, outside Kampala, Uganda, my Jeep neared the end of a long dirt road where I was met by an escort of 24 women who sang and danced in front of my car for a quarter of a mile to a squatters' camp called the Ajoli Quarter. At a small clinic, I met Rose, a Ugandan nurse who runs an AIDS ministry called Meeting Point International, supported in part by the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. The Ajoli Quarter is the home of striking contrasts. The village is really a densely populated slum, with mud houses and open sewers. A great tide of Central Africa's problems and horrors has lapped up on the side of this steep Ugandan hill. 90% of the residents are women or children, refugees from up north, where a brutal, cultish rebel group called the Lord's Resistance Army killed large numbers of the men. Many of the women are HIV positive and have terrible